GaySA Radio, where you are family. You're listening to The Steam Room, brought to you by the South African National Department of Health's Phila Project. I'm your host, Max, and tonight we're road tripping through the valleys of mental and sexual health. So, you may already have your interest piqued by our topic tonight, but if there's somebody out there who feels that you may need a little bit more clarity on the subject, we're pleased that tonight we can say we're joined by someone who knows all about just how important this topic is. Welcome to the show.
GaySA Radio, your family. My name is Ethan. We're chatting to Tom Budge about mental and sexual health. Very broad question. Is there a link between mental health and sexual health?
Oh, absolutely. I think sexuality is it's very much part of who we are as human beings. My metaphor for that is that we're like a three-legged stool, really. We stand on a floor of spirituality, whatever that is in the context of who we are, depending how we kind of express that, through whichever religious or spiritual belief we have, that's the floor on which we stand. The three legs that form pillars of who we are as human beings: our intellect, that would be one leg, our emotions, and our sexuality. And those three need to be in balance if that stool is going to be at all useful. If one leg is broken or missing, or one leg is too long or too short, that stool is just not going to work. And so we need to make sure as human beings that intellectually, emotionally, and sexually, we find that balance. And that's the link then between that mental state, who we are as beings, and the expression of our sexuality.
So then, how do mental health issues manifest themselves into sexual issues? And potentially vice versa?
I suppose there are many levels to this. At some stage, we're talking about chemsex here. Those are external chemicals that we get addicted to. If there's any kind of lack of self-worth or low self-esteem, very often people can find attraction and affirmation through the connection with others, and especially sexually, because if somebody else is prepared to see you as an attractive human being and get naked and actually be intimate with you, what finer affirmation can you get about yourself to cover up that low self-esteem or the emotional inadequacies? Other than that, that's one of the biggest affirmations of all. But then it can also play into the internal chemistry, because we have our happy feel-good drugs, the dopamines and the serotonins, and it is those emotional highs sometimes that start to be chased. And if those are the only ways that we can feel good about ourselves, it can lead to obsessive sex.
So then, how does one go about unpacking and treating these issues with somebody?
I think that's about balance is a horrible word because it becomes a bit of a cliche. I think we neither want to push at our sexuality, to push it away because we want to abstain from it. Sometimes in religious or spiritual context, sex is very often seen as the original sin, and it's a weakness, it's a flaw in one's character, which it certainly isn't. And so very often we're encouraged to push sex away and say it shouldn't be part of who we are. Obsessive sex, on the other hand, is a pulling at that sex. It's a neediness, and it's driven out of neediness. Balance is that sweet spot in the middle. It's somewhere between neither pushing at it nor pulling at it, but just enjoying it for what it is. I think the best word that I can find for that is continence. Sometimes in the elderly, bladders and bowels tend to lose continence, and you have no control over them, and that's the key. If one is sexually continent, then you're using your sexuality as a part of who you are, but it's neither obsessive nor is there any guilt about it.
So then, someone wants to go seek help for this kind of stuff. What kind of people should they be talking to?
It depends on the kind of help. Mental health, there are a whole heap of people out there that can help. Therapists, a whole range of different therapies. In my practice, I use hypnosis quite a lot with a lot of effectiveness. And it's not about reprogramming a person. It's about allowing that person to find their character and their nature and the safety zone in which they can be just a human being.
So could you chat about the link between age in the LGBT community and mental and sexual health?
Oh, it's a bit of a bell curve, I think. When, let's take a young boy, or I suppose a girl, for anybody for that matter, if you're a gay man, a gay boy, and somewhere around about puberty, you start to realize that you're attracted to men, there's the whole process of coming out. No matter how accepting the world is around you, no matter how great the Constitution is, there's an anxiety about that. And it's something that gets prolonged, it gets pushed out. And there's the anxiety and the youthfulness until such a time as you start to find those connections, and those connections are usually secret connections. And then there's the self-outing, or someone else will out you, and then your sexuality becomes public. And after that, it's almost like, well, screw it. I am who I am. I'm going to express myself for who I am. And I don't really care what other people think of me. But then the flip side is that as a person starts to age, aging is a very difficult process in the gay community because very often it's about either material acquisition, wealth, and one's sophistication as a human being in one's material sense, or it's about how beautiful you are and what you have to offer as a person in terms of physique. But even that is a kind of a material thing too. And as a man ages, those attributes, the wealth might be there, but the physical attractiveness fizzles. And it's very easy to end up in the space of being regarded as some dirty old man. Very often I've been sitting in a pub somewhere in a club and just watching. I'm an observer. And you see these men sitting and they may as well have tattooed onto their forehead the word lust or need or desperation probably even. And they try to do whatever they can in order to find a connection, but it comes across, that desperation, that neediness comes across. And then with a little bit of unattractiveness, certainly at the physical level, those elderly men very quickly can be shunned from the community. And then it becomes a very lonely, dark place. I think there's a special thing that elderly people of all sexual persuasions need to look out for, and that is a thing called grace. It's not graceful, but it's grace. It's like style. You can't really define style. What makes a person stylish? It's hard to say. You can be in the northern suburbs of Johannesburg and you can have all the money in the world, but you can look at a person like that and you can say, oh, that woman really looks kitsch. And she may be the richest woman in the suburb, but there's no style with it. It's not about the value of the things that you are wearing. It's about how you wear it. And that enigmatic word style, which is so hard to quantify, is akin to that word grace. I know of elderly people who have grace. They will never age. Their character is an amazing character. And regardless of what the body looks like, there is a pull, there is an attractiveness, a magnetism of sorts that keeps people there. And I've seen elderly men, maybe they're not having sex with the boys, but there's a cloud of young men around them who just adore that person. They find inspiration from that person. And that takes a lot of hard work. The moment you hang out the little sign of desperation, suddenly it's a different kettle of fish entirely. And what is also quite sad is that when you get to the point where you can't really help yourself, where you need assisted living for heterosexual couples, it's off to the old age home. There's the retirement village. It's all geared around couples or single bereaved people, widows and widowers. But what happens in a gay person's life? There's no old age home for gay people where they can go and feel comfortable and be in a surrounding of caregivers who understand who they are. So young boys come out of the closet. Old men go back into the closet, which is a terrible thing to do because there's fear that if the word should get out in one of those retirement villages that this is a gay person who has had sex with another man, that they'll be as ridiculed, as taunted as they were when they were younger.
Thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tom Budge talking to us about mental health and sexual health.
Thank you for joining us here in the studio on the Steam Room. It's greatly appreciated. So if you just started listening, that was an expert here to talk to us about mental and sexual health. You're listening to the Steam Room on GaySA Radio, where you are family.